Tonight's lecture is about Rivka Amenu, our mother Rebekah, who is probably the most enigmatic of our four mothers. The Torah tells us that the arrangement, so to speak, that brings her to be the wife of Yitzchak is made completely without Yitzchak. It's made between Avraham and Eliezer, and that Eliezer is the one that makes the arrangement basically with love on her brother, because Psuel, the father, dies in the interim between the beginning of the negotiations and the end. Now, Avraham is insistent that Eliezer should go to Aram Naharayim, there to the house of his brother, to the house of his relatives, and there he should bring Rivka back for Yitzchak. Why is he so insistent? I mean, to have Lavan as a brother-in-law, and we'll see the next 2 weeks, to have Lavan as a father-in-law is no simple matter. Not in any respect, spiritually, physically, economically. It just, he's not the nicest person in the world. And we have here a conflict in how to assess Eliezer. There are different midrashim that have different views of him. Avraham evidently trusts him, because otherwise he not would have sent him. And Avraham also has long experience with Eliezer. And the Gemara says that he's called Damesek Eliezer, not only because he comes from Damascus, but a play on words. Dole umashke mitorato shel Avraham la'acherim. He was the one that spread the word. He dipped the pail in the water of Avraham's Torah and gave the water to others that they should be influenced by Avraham. So obviously he sees him in a form of potential greatness. The Talmud tells us that Eliezer had a daughter, and that Avraham has to tell him specifically, because Eliezer keeps on saying, what if Rivka doesn't want to come back? What if I can't bring her home? Shall I take someone from here? The someone from here is a euphemism. Should I take my daughter? And Avraham says, no, not under any circumstances. So there's an ambivalence in the relationship of Avraham and Eliezer. An ambivalence that we'll see in a few moments, that's reflected in his bringing Rivka. Eliezer is a loyal servant, but he's not necessarily a trustworthy servant. Left to his own devices, Eliezer will not be able to continue the heritage of Avraham, nor does he have the values that Avraham has. So we all know the story. Eliezer comes, and Rivka comes out to fetch water. So there are different midrashim as to Rivka's age. We all know the medrash that she was 3 years old. But there's another medrash that says she was 14, which I guess makes it better. But certainly in that age, in that era, 14-year-old women got married. It was true in Eastern Europe all the time. And it's true amongst the Sephardic Jews as well. I know Rabbi Kafach told me once that he was 13 and his wife was 12 when they got married. They celebrated their 70th wedding anniversary. So she comes out, and we all know the story. She gives water and volunteers and everything, and she's good-hearted, and she's beautiful. All of our mothers were beautiful women. I mentioned that regarding Sarah, a special quality. The Medrash goes so far to say that one of the reasons that they remained barren for so long was so not to spoil their beauty. Now, Rivka is the product of the house of Psuel and the house of Lavan. The Gemara says that she's the product of the house of paganism, of idol worship. And therefore, the intimation is that she is not as disturbed originally by her son Esav's performance as perhaps otherwise she would have been, because the Medrash says, Al Yadei Shohoisa Rivka Bas Komrim, since she was the daughter of priests to the Avodah Zorah, to paganism, Lo Hoisa Makpedes Al Tinofes Avodah Zorah. She wasn't so zealous regarding the effects of Avodah Zorah. It didn't come as a shock to her. She comes, so she's here, a young woman. She leaves her family behind. Her family does not want her to go for various reasons. And she nevertheless accepts the challenge of being the wife of Yitzchak. Yitzchak is much older than she is. Even if she be 13 or 14, Yitzchak is 40 already. And also, Yitzchak has this worldwide reputation for being a holy man. Not everybody wants to be the wife of a holy man. It's very hard to be married to a holy man. And to prevent her from going, her brother gives her no dowry. She leaves almost empty-handed. And all of the gifts are given by Eliezer to her. But the customary dowry that was given to brides is not given to Rivka. The Medrash also remarks that it was unlikely that she should go out and draw water. That's not, it's not her job in life. The Lashon of the Medrash is Bas Malachimi, she's a princess. Psuel was a man that had stature in the community. But I imagine that this is the idea of Bashert as it works in this case, right? That she happens that day to go out to draw water, and that's the day that Eliezer comes, and that's the day he sees her, etc., etc. She says, I'm going to go with him. Ani bal korchechem. I'm going to go even if you object, she says. Shelo b'tovaschem. Even if you don't do me any favors, even if you don't give me anything, I'm going to go with Eliezer. I'm going to the house of Avraham. So it says, Vayavorchu es Rivka achosam. They blessed Rivka. So the rabbis say that's all they gave her was a blessing. They gave her words, right? And words are cheap. But it's interesting that bracha that Lavan and the others gave to Rivka remains until today the bracha that we say to a kala before the chuppah, at the badekunga, when she is veiled. So we say, Achaseinu atayi le'alfei revava. Our sister, may you be numerous, thousands and tens of thousands. Yirash zarech es shar sonav. And may your seed, your children, your descendants be the ones that inherit the gates of those who hate them. And that blessing which was given to Rivka has been retained for the 3,700 years since it was given. And it's the standard blessing that's given to brides before they go to the chuppah. Rivka sees Yitzchak from afar. Yitzchak goes out into the fields to pray, and she's riding on the camel. The sight of Yitzchak is such, she is so overwhelmed that she falls from the camel. Camel is pretty tall. It's a real fall. She's somewhat injured, the Medrash says, by the fall. And she sees Yitzchak in all of his glory, especially at prayer. Yitzchak lasuach basode, ein sicho el tefillah, that he was praying. The Yitzchak was the founder of the mincha prayer that we have. And she sees this great aura, this holy, almost a person with a halo. And so she is so overwhelmed by it. So she says, who is this man? So the Medrash says, who is this man means, is he a man, right? Is he going to be a husband? Because again, the idea of marrying a holy person many times is so daunting that the woman wants a more normal life. She doesn't want a life necessarily of holiness and abstinence, etc., etc. We see in the Torah that Zipporah, the wife of Moshe, complains. That was the story when Aaron and Miriam spoke against Moshe. They spoke against Moshe because she spoke to them. And she said to them, I don't have a husband, right? He's in heaven all the time. So she also is somewhat daunted by the experience, by seeing him. There's a second problem that the Medrash discusses openly, and that is that he is afraid that Eliezer on the way may have molested her. So we have here another view of Eliezer. The Medrash says to Yalkut Shimoni, Omer Avram li Yitzchak ohevet hazeh choshud al kol averos shebatorah. This servant is suspect to violate every principle and value in the Torah. This is the great Eliezer that is the transmitter of the tradition of Avram Avinu to the world. So one can be on one, the Medrash doesn't contradict each other. On one hand, one can be that, and the other thing, that one can be suspected of doing everything. And that is the basic rule that the rabbis repeated over and over again. Ein apotropos la'aroyos. When it comes to certain matters, physical matters, sexual matters, there's no safeguard. Everybody is suspect. Everybody is liable. Everyone is vulnerable. And therefore the rabbis always built fences in order to prevent untoward incidents from occurring. We see it unfortunately in our world all the time, right? Great people, wonderful people, even people that pass for holy people, and then all of a sudden something happens. So Avram said to Yitzchak, you name it, he can do it. Umirma biyodo. And he's a trickster. He knows how to hide it. He knows how to pretend that he's holy. There's a famous anecdote told the Chtam Sofer, Moshe Sofer. So the Mishnah in Truma says that if a person pretends that he's, God forbid, ill in order to gain sympathy, or he doesn't want to take the exam, right? So he calls in sick. Person pretends that he's ill. So the Mishnah says, if the person does that, they know nifter min ha'olam, we will not leave the world without tasting what sickness is. Then the Gemara says a person pretends that he's poor, doesn't have money. Somebody comes to him for charity, he says, I have no money. I've heard that a few times in my lifetime. Not that I can't give you now. Come back later, I don't agree with your cause, which are all legitimate reasons for not giving money. But I don't have any money. Oh, I don't have any money, so the Mishnah says, Eino niftar min olam, we will not leave the world without knowing what it is at one time not to have money. So someone asked the Chasam Sofer as follows: what if the person pretends he's a tzaddik? Right? So if you follow the formula, so then he's got to become a tzaddik, right? So what's his punishment? So the Chasam Sofer said his punishment is that he'll believe he's a tzaddik. He'll believe that he's righteous. Because a person can talk oneself into that very easily. So Eliezer Avram says he's a mirma, he's a trickster, he is a hypocrite, he can make you believe it. And therefore I don't trust him. And he was alone with this girl for the entire trip. The Gemara says, Kofza lo aderech, right? He made it in one day, because evidently, if it would have been longer, it could have been greater problems. So Avram says, go and ask her what happened. Imagine the opening conversation between Yitzchak and Rivka. Tell me what happened on the way here. And after she told him, he believed her, and therefore he married her. The clear indication is that if he would not have believed her, he would not have married her. So the thing is wobbly from the beginning. Very, very difficult relationship. It's two different worlds. Yitzchak was brought on the altar just 3 years before, and he's raised in the house of Avraham, and he's the heir to Avraham. And she comes from the house of Psuel and Lavan. She comes from a house of idolatry. Very mixed background. Nevertheless, the Gemara says, in the famous Medrash, and Rashi quotes it, that when Rivka came into the house of Yitzchak, so then the three things that were present in the house of his mother, Sarah, now were restored, because when Sarah died, they disappeared. The three things were Bracha Mitzuya Me'isa, that in the dough that she made, there was a blessing. In other words, there always was enough, no matter how much you made. And Ner Doluk Erev Shabbos L'Erev Shabbos. In Sarah's tent, the Friday night candles burned till the next Friday night. And V'onun Kosher Al Oel, and there was the Spirit of God, the cloud of holiness was upon the tent. When Sarah died, all three disappeared, because they were in her merit, not in Abraham's merit. There are many things in a house that are only in the woman's merit. The husband is only along for the ride, even though he may think differently. And therefore, here it's apparent that what? That Sarah is dead. Rivka came into the house, all three were restored again. There was a blessing in the house, in the dough, in the everyday life, and the dough means the everyday living. Every day in the house, and all the mundane domestic things, there was a blessing there. It's not chores. And the light of Shabbos shone through the entire week, which is what we attempt to do with Shabbos. We attempt to prolong it. There are Jews, unfortunately, that are in a hurry. The Jews are in a hurry to get out of shul, right? The services are too long. Somebody told me, Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, it's too long. I said, what are you, Yom Kippur, where are you going? What are you going to do? What's too long? Yom Echad Bashana, 1 day in the year. Yom HaKodesh, a holy day. What's wrong with you? I come from the yeshiva and we never had a break, We started at 7 in the morning and went to 7 at night. It was exalted. The heaven opened. But what's too long? Shabbos is too long, they wait, Somebody told me, we don't wait very long for Motzei Shabbos in Yerushalayim. We have the Gaon, Shita, etc. We don't wait 72 minutes in shul. So I guess instead of waiting 21 minutes, they waited 22 minutes. Well, no, it was, Vesuvius erupted. Somebody came up to me, I said, I don't wear a watch on Shabbos. I have no idea what time it is. It's an extra minute of Shabbos, right? Our idea is to prolong the Shabbos. Saturday night there's a Malava Malka. We don't just let it go. Hang on. She had a whole week of Shabbos. Ner Doluk, Meir of Shabbos, Leir of Shabbos. What a house that must have been. The Gemara says the famous story about the Roman general that ate in the house of the Tana, right? And they gave him a good portion of cholm to eat. And he said, that's great. He said, I'm going to send my chef and give him the recipe. First of all, there's no recipe, but so he sends the chef and they tell him how to do it, and he makes it on Tuesday, and he gives it to him to eat. The guy comes back to the Tana, to the rabbi, he says, it's awful. You didn't give the right recipe. He said, you're right, I forgot to tell you one ingredient. Shabbos Shema. The name of the ingredient is Shabbos. So Shabbos is an ingredient. It's an ingredient in the food. It's an ingredient in the marriage, an ingredient in the family. It's the ingredient in life. It's the great gift that the Lord gave us. So in the house of Sarah, in the house of Rivka, Ner Doluk, Meir of Shabbos, Leir of Shabbos, the Shabbos lasted the whole week. Rabbi Saul Salanter used to say that all years should be like Chodesh Elul, where people begin to concentrate on improving themselves. And he said the month of Elul is Elul, so you should certainly work on it. But there were Jews that the whole year was the month of Elul. Jews used to have a Yiddish song, I remember in my youth in the yeshiva, we used to sing it on Simchas Torah, ganz Yor Freilich. All year to be happy. So it's Simchas Torah to be the whole year. That was the talent of the Jewish people. To be able to sanctify the mundane. To lend an aura of holiness to everyday life. And onun kosher al oel, right? On her tent, God's Spirit reigned. You came into the tent of Sarah, you came into the tent of Rivka, you knew you were in a special place. It was palpable. So when Rivka came, Yitzchak saw that all of that returned. So he married her, and then it says, Vayehoveho, and he loved her. The Torah does not throw words around. He was deeply in love with her. They loved each other all of their lives, through all of the difficulties, terrible difficulties that they had. Because that was the mainstay of their marriage, was Vayehoveho, that he loved her. So, you know, in certain societies, so to speak, you're not even allowed to say that. You're not allowed to say that you love your wife. It's not chain. But the Torah is not embarrassed. The Torah, which is Sefer Toldos Odom, the Torah which speaks about human beings and teaches us what it is to be a human being. The Torah is Lo Malachim. It's not given for angels. It's given for plain people. So it says Vayehoveho. And that's how they built their life together. Now she's barren. Yitzchak feels the burden that Avraham felt. Avraham said, Titenli, what are you going to give me, God? Vanochi holech hariri, I have no future. The Jewish people are always built upon the future. The future will be better. Our children will be better than we are. Our grandchildren will be better than we are. Future will be better. But there's no future. And she's a barren woman. They're married for 20 years. They're desperate. The Medrash says a remarkable thing. Just a remarkable thing. Why would it take 20 years? I mean, God wants that she should have children, you'll have children. So the Medrash says, so that Lavan shouldn't think that his blessing was the cause of it. He gave her the blessing when she left. Achaseinu atayil alfei ravova v'yirash zarei chishar sonov. She would have had children right away. Lavan would have said, look at that, you know. Lavan would have put up a sign, come to me for blessings. You see that it works. For 20 years, Lavan's blessing doesn't work. Until Lavan himself despairs of it. But when Yitzchak and Rivka pray, so then the Ribono Shel Olam listens. And she becomes pregnant with twins. And she has a very difficult, problematic pregnancy. We'll see that by Rachel also. Rachel will die in childbirth. And the idea is that the Jewish future is never certain and it's never painless. It's never the way we think it's going to be. So it says, Vayisrot Satsu Abonim B'kirba. So there are many midrashim. One medrash is that they tried to kill each other while in their mother's womb. Esav and Yaakov are, from conception, are two opposite poles. And that's why Yaakov is V'yodo Chezes Ba'akev Esav. When he's born, he's still holding on to him. And the Medrash says that when she passed the house of Avodah Zarah, Esav is excited. When she passed the yeshiva or the shul, then Yaakov is excited. So until she realized that she had twins, she didn't know what was going on. So then the prophet tells her, according to many midrashim, it's shame, He tells her, Shnei goyim bevitnech. It's two nations, two separate, it's not going to be together. Which also is a lesson that it's not going to be homogenized. It's not going to be Esav Yaakov. It's going to be either or, which is the story of Jewish people in all of its ages. Is that in spite of all the synthesis that we have, and in spite of how we blend everything, eventually it comes down to either or. And that's what Yoshua said to the Malach, Alonu ato in letzarenu. Are you with us? Are you against us? Could have said, I'm neither, right? I'm just delivering a telegram. What do you want from me? But he didn't give him the choice. He said, no, sir, Alonu ato, either with us, and if you're not with us, letzarenu, then you're against us. We see that in the Jewish world today. It doesn't take much vision to see it. Are you with us or not? Right? If you're with amnesty, then you're with amnesty, right? If you're with, all of the other things that go on here, so that's who you're with. You're not with us. Yaakov and Esav are two worlds. And the contest between them has not abated over thousands of years. It says, Vayomer Hashem lo, God spoke to Rivka. So we don't find in the Torah a direct reference of God speaking to a woman, even though Miriam was a prophetess and Sarah was a prophetess, as we said. But to Sarah, he sent an angel to tell her that she's going to have a child. And here God communicates with her directly. So the Medrash says, because of the fact that look where she came from and look where she is now. Now this is based upon two opinions in the Talmud that conflict. One opinion is, b'mokom shebalei tshuva umdim, ein malochei hashoresh yecholim lamod, that in heaven, when a person comes from a difficult background, and comes from a different world, and ends up being a pious and good person, a good Jew, so then that's the highest, right? So he's ahead of the tzaddikim, he's ahead of the righteous, he's ahead of the FFBs. And the other opinion is the opposite. Two opinions in the Talmud. So here, this Medrash supports the idea that the Balei Tshuva are in a higher realm, that they somehow are more exalted. Because look at the effort that they had to make to achieve this, to come here. It says in the Torah that she covered herself with a veil, a tiskaf batzoif. The other place it says in the Torah the word tzoif is by Tomar, Yehuda. There she used the veil to hide her face so that he would not recognize her. And she also had twins. But her twins were both righteous. And here they are not. And this is something that Rivka is disturbed, the Medrash says, all of her life. Because by Avraham after all had a child, Yishmael. But Sarah never had a Yishmael. So the blame, quote unquote, can be put on Hagar. Sarah is guiltless, except for the fact that she arranged it, but otherwise it's not her child. Here Rivka has no outlet. She has no excuse. It's from her womb. And therefore she always sees herself as being guilty for having brought Esav into the world. And that's why she takes such measures to ensure that Yaakov will obtain the bracha and not Esav, because she has this overriding sense that somehow it was her fault that there's an Esav in the world. The Medrash says a remarkable thing, that she left a will in her tzavoah that when she dies they should bury her at night and no one should know about the funeral, because she said everybody will come and say, oh, that's Esav's mother. They won't say that she's Yaakov's mother. And to a great extent that's true. That in families many times, a person can have a very large family, thank God, and everybody is good and wonderful, and there's one child that doesn't turn out, and the one child is what rules the family. It's what clouds the entire picture. So she sees herself with this sense of the fact that somehow Esav is from her. And the Medrash says Esav is because of Lavan, because of Psuel, right? But it's all because of her. It's her genetic, it's her DNA. She's the mother. And also because of the fact that she is from the house of Lavan and Psuel, she spots Esav far earlier than does Yitzchak. Yitzchak is almost, in the words of the rabbi, naive regarding the matter. He thinks that Esav can turn out. He thinks that we'll give him the blessings, we'll make special courses for him in the yeshiva, we'll take care of him, we'll give him a lighter schedule, all sorts of good things. Esav would also be good. And she sees right away, she sees that nothing's going to help here. She sees him as the murderer that he is, as the philanderer that he is, as the robber that he is. And that must be pretty painful for a mother. So her life is suffused with that tragedy. The tragedy of Esav and the tragedy that she somehow feels that she's responsible for Esav. And that's why we see that she's so proactive in trying to secure the blessings for Yaakov. Because she says Esav will make it in the world without blessings, right? But Yaakov will never make it without the blessings. Yaakov is Ish Tom Yoshev Oholim. He hasn't got Esav's equipment. And therefore, we have to do something to make sure that he survives. And therefore, she really is the prime actor, or actress in this case, of subverting her husband's will, of making certain that what Yitzchak wanted to do, he cannot do. She overhears that Yitzchak says to Esav, bring me venison, bring me a meal, and I'll bless you. She overhears that, and she tells Yaakov, you go quickly, bring me the two goats that I have. So the Medrash darshans here, the two goats is the same symbol of the two goats that we have on Yom Kippur. One is La Hashem and one is La Azazel. But both of them are for a holy purpose. So La Azazel means, in the words of the Gemara, it's a very difficult topic, but the Gemara says that we're giving the sultan, so to speak, his due. There's a concept in Judaism that you have to somehow give the sultan a chance to. He has to think that he's winning. He has to think that somehow it works. Otherwise, you'll prevent it. Otherwise, you'll say, how can it be that the Jews are not worthy? Not worthy of being forgiven on Yom Kippur. They're not worthy. So God has to arrange it in such a way that the Sultan also feels. Now, this is only a metaphor, not meant to be understood in its simplistic form. But the idea occurs over and over in Judaism. I once heard it from a great Rav that he said it about the formation of the state of Israel. He said, how come the state of Israel was formed by a bunch of atheists? After thousands of years of Torah and of observance and of rigid, tenacious attachment to Torah and everything, all of a sudden a bunch of chevras, socialists, communists, atheists, agnostics come and they make the state. So he said that was giving the Sultan his due. That's why the Sultan let it happen. He said if we would have come and made the state, the Sultan would have said we're not worthy, and we're not worthy. So it never would have happened. But this way, oh good, Ben Gurion's the prime minister, wonderful, the good. Yari's the minister, good. Right? Mapam, wonderful, good, let it happen. Meanwhile, God works what he wants to work. But it's never the way we want it to be. So she brings the 2 goats, and in bringing the 2 goats and skinning it, and so one goat is prepared for the food, and the other one is skinned so that Yaakov will feel his hairy hands and neck will feel like Esav. Now Yaakov objects. He says, Ma, what are you doing here? I'm going to cheat my father? And then he says, worse than that, but my father will certainly see through it. He will feel me, etc. He'll know it's a fake. And because of it, instead of blessing me, he will curse me. So she says the fateful words, Olai kilaloscha b'ni. My son, the klola is ami. So the simple explanation is that she takes the klola upon herself, and that's why, even though she's much younger than Yitzchak, she dies much earlier than Yitzchak does. Yitzchak lives till 180, and the Medrash says that she only lived to 133, so there's 47 years there, and the fact that she was started 26 years before, so it's like 70 years that Yitzchak is alone. So she said the curse is on me, so she died earlier. That's the simple explanation. But the Meforshim here have a deep understanding. She said, Olai kilaloscha b'ni, the klola that Esav is because of me, my son. Your klola that you have to be Esav's brother, and you have to wrestle with him for thousands of years, and that you're always in danger that he's going to come and kill you, Olai, it's because of me. I'm the one that's responsible. And therefore you do what I say because, so to speak, it's the only way I can expiate my problem as well. I can somehow make peace with what happened here. The Medrash says that she accompanied him till Yitzchak's door, till the room. Because he's hesitant all the way. He doesn't want, and we see that Even when his father asks him, who are you? He says, Ani, I'm who I am, Onochi, I am who I am. Esa b'chorecha, he gives an ambiguous answer. To a great extent, Yaakov almost wishes that Yitzchak will find out the truth, that the charade will be discovered. Like he doesn't want it to go through. And it's Rivka that forces him. So she says, the Medrash says in Beishis Rabbah, Livso Soara Pesach, she accompanied him to the door of Yitzchak. V'yomralo, and she said, Ad kan oyisi chayeves loch. Until here, that's my responsibility. My responsibility is to get you to the door. Mikan ve'elech borach yokum loch. From now on, God has to help you. I can't do any more. So the Meforshim saw in this really what every mother can say in life. That the mother can bring the child to a certain level. It can bring it to the door. But the mother can't live the child's life. The mother can't save the child, can't save the child from life's vicissitudes. The mother can't, solve the child's problems. From now on, God has to help you. You have to help yourself, and God has to help you. So I can bring you to the door of Yitzchak, and I can dress you in Esav's garments, and I can tell you what to say. I can do all of that. I'll prepare you for the exam, but you have to take the exam. That's really a lesson in parenting. It's a very hard, difficult lesson because most parents want to go through the door as well. Your mother-in-law calls on the wedding night to see if you're comfortable. So, only until the door. Only until the door of Yitzchak. After that, it's year to one. When Yitzchak discovers that Yaakov was the one that he blessed, so he's struck with ambivalence, as the Rashi points out, the Medrash points out. What's going to be with Esav? And especially Esav shows up right away. And Esav weeps. The only time we see the strong man, the murderer, he weeps. He says, Abrocha achas l'chovi. What, you have only one blessing? Borcheni gamoni ovi. I also need a blessing, right? And Yitzchak says, Bo achicha b'mirma, your brother came in his cleverness. Vayikach es birchasecha, and he took your blessing. I don't have, I can't give the blessing twice. And the Chumash says that is the source of much of the hatred that Esav retained against Yaakov, and it retains itself throughout the ages. The non-Jewish world hates the Jewish world because the Jewish world is blessed because of what it is. I was reading with my wife today a description written by a Lithuanian Jew of Jewish life in Lithuania, the beauty of Jewish life in Lithuania. The man Avram Kariv, he was a beautiful writer in Hebrew. It's called Lita Makurati, the Lita that I knew. So he has there a chapter on the Balei Musar, on the leaders of the ethics of Lithuanian Jewish society. Rabbi Saul Salanter and his descendants and his disciples. I personally yet saw people like that. It's hard to see them today anymore because time is gone. The Germans destroyed it all. But they were remarkable in just the most moral, ethical, sensitive, soulful people. So he wrote there, he said that in the Ponar forest where they killed out the Jews in Lithuania, he said, Esav met Yaakov again. The two things that are antithetical in the world. The murderers and the people of superior morals. And that's why they had to kill him. Because as long as they would have survived, so then everybody would have seen what the murderers were. And that's basically the whole idea of the Jewish people, whether Jews realize it or not. Atem Eidai Nu'um Hashem. You are my witnesses. It's not that we witness God. You're here, right? Your Torah is here, so the rest of the world is uncomfortable. We're a burr under the saddle. We bother people. That's why the world loves to see when Jews do something wrong, God forbid, because then, oh, you're not, you see, you're not. That's why we're occupiers and we're murderers, we're conquerors. It's all an attempt to strip from us what we are. And Rivka recognizes that. And therefore she tells Yitzchak directly that it's Yaakov where you're going to have your future. In the Rosh Hashanah prayers, we have two texts by Zohar Abris. So we say, you'll remember your covenant. That's Yitzchak, right? And you'll be, because of the covenant of Yitzchak, the Jewish people will be saved, right? But there's a piece, usually in parentheses, the second text, it says, Ulazaro shel Yaakov. And to the children of Jacob you'll remember. You'll remember that from Yitzchak there's also an Esav. Remember there's a difference between us and Esav. In heaven they should also remember that. Lazaro shel Yaakov barachamim tizkor. That's what to remember. And therefore she comes to him, she changes the subject immediately. She said, we got to marry him off. Always a happy subject between parents. Katzti b'chayai mipnei benos ches. It's impossible in my life, with no life, if he marries any of these girls in our neighborhood. So in Yitzchak says, okay. So she says, I'm going to send him, I'm going to do what your father did. Your father sent to the house of Lavan, to the house of Psuel. I'm also going to send him to the house of Lavan and Psuel. And she tells Yaakov, and she doesn't tell him that he's going to get married there. She tells him that you'll go for a little while, the Esav will cool down, he'll forget, his anger will abate a little, he won't be out to kill you, and then you'll come back. But she's sending him there to get married. Katzti b'chayai benos ches. He's gone for 20 years. It's 22 years by the time he comes back. He never sees his mother again. She knows she's sending him away forever. We find in life that also is within the strength of a mother to be able to do that, so that the child would live. And the Holocaust is replete with stories like that. But even without the Holocaust, in life generally, the mother wants that the child should have opportunities. The child should somehow be able to survive and succeed. And she's willing to sacrifice her own, he's 22 years away. She never sees him again. On the way back, when the Medrash says that when he comes to Beisail, he is back to where his journey began, and there he receives the news that Rivka died, and her Menekes, her nurse, the woman that was her companion all of her life, she also died, Dvorah. And he's bereft. And we see throughout Yaakov's life, all the tragedies that he suffers, there's this great aura of sadness about him. And because of the difficulties that are thrust upon him. She's buried, Rivka is buried with Yitzchak in Hebron. The same Hebron that Jews say we should move out of. That we have no share in it. So again, without being political, because I'm never political, is just a misreading. It's because you don't believe in the Bible. You don't believe in the Torah. That's where it all stems from. It stems from not having Torah values. So you have values of the Western world and everything. Okay, fine. It's all fine and good, but it has nothing to do with us. Alonu atoim litzarenu. So she's buried. The Medrash says that Adam and Avraham and Yitzchak and Yaakov are buried in one row, and at their feet are buried their wives, Chava and Rivka, Chava and Sora and Rivka and Leah. And therefore, that's her resting place. And as I mentioned before, she said, make it a private funeral, no public services, because everybody will say, oh, that's the mother of Esau. So even in her last moment, even in the funeral, she carries that burden of the fact that she is the mother of Esau. Rivka is our great mother. I mentioned before, none of the people that we talk about here are people that we can ever imagine. They're beyond our imagination. And their greatness and holiness, our mothers and fathers in the Tanakh are not given to any sort of assessment by us. And therefore, the only thing we can do is repeat the Gemaras and the Midrashim, what Chazal said. But from what Chazal said, we already have a picture. We have an understanding of who they were and of what they faced. And Rivka's life, the turmoil and the difficulties and everything, nevertheless, she remains one of our great heroines and our mother. There are only 4 women that are called imohos, that are called our mothers. And to all eternity, therefore, Rivka remains Rivka Imenu.